Okay, so basic pop-ups in Leaflet. Now, this is actually all just in that basic default example that Leaflet had. So if we go again to the Leaflet examples and this basic example, the quick start guide, there's actually all kinds of pop-ups going on here. So we see it here. There's also some kind of weirdness where the pop-up is anchored in a strange place, so it appears kind of badly. You know, if I click on it again, it appears better here. But that other pop-up that appeared when the map opened was kind of in a weird place. So pop-ups are not always super straightforward. So let's go over the code a little bit and see how these work. Okay, so here's our code, and we have some little things here. We have this, if we look, we recognize some of this, our map initialization with our longitude, with our latitude and longitude, and our zoom, our base map. Then we're making a marker, adding it to the map, and then we have this little thing that says bind pop-up. And then inside it, there's some HTML. You know, this is an HTML tag we didn't talk about. It basically bolds text. This is another tag we didn't talk about. Basically, it's a line break. And then there's some text around it. So you can put HTML in there. And then there's this thing that says open pop-up. So bind pop-up is a special method in Leaflet that allows us to attach a pop-up to a feature when we're creating it. Okay, so if we go find, let's see, pop-up methods, bind pop-up, you can make it so that when a feature is going to be clicked, this pop-up is going to open. So that's, you can see they do it again with the circle, and they do it again with the polygon. So you can do this in a few ways. Here they do what we call chaining, function chaining. So they create the thing with L circle, and then they do this dot add to map dot bind pop-up. But you don't have to do it that way. You could do it like this, circle dot bind pop-up, because you've made this thing called circle, and now you're attaching, it has a function that is available to it called bind pop-up, and then you just put the content in there. Could be text, could be div, it could be whatever. So that allows us to just attach a pop-up, so whenever it's clicked, it will open. And I think there's some defaults like, let's see, does it open more than one at once? No. By default, when you use bind pop-up, it will close any other pop-ups that are already open. That might be good for you, or that might not be good for you. You can see it also adds this little X, and that may be an option. Let's see if we can see in the bind pop-up. You can see bind pop-up itself doesn't really have any options. It just creates a default pop-up, and that has that X in it. So if we want to create our own pop-up, we're going to have to do it using this L pop-up. And then we have to set the latitude, longitude. We can set the content. And there's also some options, like let's see if it has that option. There's the close button option. So when we're doing the bind pop-up, I don't think that we can actually add that option to it. We have to create a special pop-up to do that. So down here, you can see in this example, they actually do create a pop-up. There's the L pop-up, and they set the latitude and longitude, and they set the content, and they open it on the map. And these are all functions that are detailed ultimately here inside the pop-up documentation. So in the events methods, open on map, there it is. And what were the other things? Set content, set lat long. That's here in the methods. We have to kind of open these up. Set lat long, and the other one was what? Set content, which, where is that? Let's see if we can find it inside one of these layers. No, don't find it in there. So this is, I do find this to be kind of a pain with Leaflet. There it is, set get content, set content, see? And it can be a string, like just text, it can be an HTML element, or it can be like HTML string. So let's try just changing this to, for instance, a div, and we'll give it a style, background red, and we'll just see if that does anything. So, okay, we've changed that. That should be the one that opens by default. Yeah, so there's the div with the red background. And now let's try getting rid of that X. So in this case, it says here that one of the options is the close button. So where does that option go? Well, just like when we were creating the polygons and the circles and giving them these options, it goes in this little pop-up thing here. So we can say, right here, we'll say close button false. And that is telling it, because it says close button is a Boolean. Boolean, these are all so many things with programming, is true or false. You tell it to be, it's true or it's false. And obviously if it's true, then it means have the close button. False means don't have it. So I put the option in here when I create the pop-up, and let's load it again. And you can see that little X is gone now. There's still all this padding around it and stuff. And maybe I could change that by giving it a class name in the options, or changing some other information in here and then messing around with CSS to change this. But that's roughly how we're going to create a pop-up in Leaflet, aside from using the bind pop-up. If we need a special pop-up, we can do it using this kind of thing here. Okay, so this is a good pattern to use in general, that you create the pop-up separately rather than using bind pop-up every time, just because you get a bit more control over the look of the pop-up rather than just using the default. So, but one of the pains here is you have to set the latitude and longitude. Now you'll have to listen for click events and stuff like that, and then set the latitude and longitude once the polygon is clicked, set the content once the polygon is clicked, all that sort of stuff. It's kind of a pain in the butt, right? So bind pop-up has its uses, but in the long run, we'll probably be using something like this a lot more often. You can see here how they've made it work is they've done this click event. So there's this thing map.onClick, and it'll run this function on map click. On map click is, I have two of them actually, but we're just going to erase that one so you can see the default one. The default one takes the pop-up that was already defined and is a global variable, sets the latitude and longitude to something that we got back. We'll look at that in a sec. Tells us we click the map at a certain lat long and opens it. So here we're just going to console log E, because it's kind of confusing. Where does this get E? Well, E is like a default, and it's shorthand for event when it comes to JavaScript. It's a default bit of information, a default parameter, a bit of information that's passed into this function when it's attached to this click event. So, and it has some data on it. So anyway, let's reload and we'll click around. So when we click, you can see, so it's a different latitude and longitude slightly every time. And when I open up my little inspector and look, you can see that my console logging that E, there's some information that's attached. We have a latitude and longitude and some other stuff, but the latitude and longitude are kind of the important ones. So you can see here, it sets the latitude and longitude to that e.latlong. And then it tells us that we clicked it. And this, there's going to be a little bit of new things coming in and out here. This is a special bit of syntax in JavaScript where you can put a variable using this $sign and curly braces. It's a bit confusing to try to throw this all at you at once while you're trying to learn about pop-ups, and now you've got this click event and you got this new function and now you got this event thing. But this is yet another thing. There's a special syntax you can use to add this variable in here that is kind of nice, and we're going to use it a bit, so you don't have to totally understand it right now. The most important thing is it's using this this character that's up on mine. It's the tilde character that's beside the 1 on my keyboard. It uses that instead of a quotation mark or a double quotation mark, and that's what it encases the string in, and then it uses this $sign, curly braces, and end curly braces. So you don't really have to know it too well. We're going to use it a little bit now and again just to get you used to seeing it, but this is just a special way to get this latitude and longitude into printing so someone can read it. Okay, so yeah, so that's a lot, actually, more than I realized. But yeah, so we have a fair bit going on here. Now, one other thing I want to show you is there's not just click events, there's also mouse moving events or hover events. And hover events, we generally use these terms mouse move and mouse out. So mouse move refers to any time your mouse is moving on the map, in this case, where it says map.on mouse move. And mouse out refers to whenever your mouse leaves that the bounds of that map. So you could set this on a div, and anytime the mouse moves in the div, the function will run, and when the mouse leaves the div, the mouse out function will run. So in this case, I'm just having it do this same map on click when my mouse is moving, and when my mouse leaves the map, it'll just completely remove the pop-up. So and that .remove is one of the methods that's available, I think here. .remove right there is one of the methods for the pop-up that basically just takes it off the map. So let's just see this happening. So you can see as I hover around and mouse move, it's continually changing this pop-up. And if I get my mouse off, it disappears. One more little thing, we're going to be doing this again in the next lesson. So you don't have to have totally understood everything just now. I know I'm throwing a fair bit at you, but we're going to be doing this, and we're going to return to these concepts a couple times. But one thing I want to just kind of get into your head is this idea that we're defining the pop-up outside of the function where we're opening it. So the pop-up is a global thing. There's one pop-up that's been defined, and every time the map is clicked or every time the map is mouse moved, it just takes that pop-up that was already defined and sets its lat long and resets its content. Now, this is a really important thing, because otherwise, if you don't do this, if every time you create a new pop-up, look what's going to happen. Okay, I'm going to take this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that here and just say, okay, every time that I mouse move, it's going to create a new pop-up rather than using one that I already created that's like outside the function. And watch what will happen. So actually, when I was doing this, it didn't quite do what I actually expected. I was expecting it to just have a whole stream of pop-ups that would happen, but actually there's some built-in things to Leaflet, and you can see here it doesn't work as smooth because it's every time I move, it's like auto-closing the old one and then reopening a new one. So anyway, you shouldn't do this, but if I change it so it doesn't do its auto-close, which is one of its options or whatever, then this is what I was expecting. It's continually making new pop-ups. That's kind of what I wanted to show. The idea here is that you want to just make one pop-up and then just use that, change what's inside that pop-up. It's much smoother, it's just a lot easier, and it's not gonna like mess up your system with tons and tons of extra stuff. So, okay, that's a basic bit about pop-ups. In the next one, we're gonna go over a bit more with making them dynamic and review a couple things. We're going to go over these things a couple times. So, get in there, try making a little bit of pop-ups yourself, and we'll see you in the next one.